My stepbrother kicked down my bedroom door at 3 a.m. He screamed, "I want his room, and I want it now." "Whose room?" I asked, half asleep, while my stepbrother Ethan stood there breathing hard with his fists clenched. He was 17 and had moved in 6 months ago when my dad Mark married his mom, Karen, but he'd never acted violent before. My dad rushed in behind him, looking panicked. "Ethan, calm down and go back to bed." But Ethan pushed past him into my room and started pulling my stuff off the shelves. "This should be mine. He doesn't deserve it." He threw my textbooks on the floor and grabbed my laptop. Dad tried to grab him, but Ethan was bigger and shoved him back. "Tell him the truth or I will." Dad's face went white and Karen appeared in the doorway in her robe, looking scared. "Ethan, please don't do this. We talked about waiting." "Waiting for what?" I stood up confused and worried because Ethan was destroying my room at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. "I'm done waiting. It's been 6 months of watching him live in what should be mine." He kicked my desk chair, and it hit the wall hard. "You promised me when we moved in." Karen was crying now. "That's not what we promised. You're twisting everything." She tried to touch Ethan's arm, but he jerked away. "You said once we were settled, things would change." He looked at me with pure hatred. "You said he was temporary." My stomach dropped. Temporary? What did that mean? Dad stepped between us. "Nobody said that. Ethan, you need to leave right now." But Ethan laughed, and it sounded unhinged. "You told Mom he was going to military school. That's why I agreed to move here." He pulled something from his pocket. "I have the emails." He waved papers around. "Ravenwood Military Institute starting January. Mom forwarded me everything." I grabbed the papers and saw email exchanges between Dad and Karen from 3 months ago discussing sending me away. "You were going to ship me off to military school?" Dad couldn't look at me. "It was just an option we discussed. Nothing was decided." Ethan kicked my dresser. "Stop lying. You already paid the deposit. $20,000 non-refundable." He pulled out his phone showing a bank statement. "October 15th, same day you told me I'd get the bigger room soon." Karen was sobbing now. "We thought it would be better for everyone. You and Ethan don't get along." We didn't get along because Ethan had been hostile since day one. Now I knew why. He'd been promised my room and my absence. Better for everyone? I'm a straight A student. I've never been in trouble. Ethan laughed again. "That's the problem. Perfect little Daniel making me look bad." He grabbed my awards off the wall and threw them down. State chess champion, honor roll, Eagle Scout. Each one crashed to the floor. Mom said, "You made me look like a failure just by existing." Dad finally found his voice. "We never said that. Ethan is lying." But Karen shook her head. "No, Mark, we need to be honest." Karen wiped her face and looked at me. We were overwhelmed. Blending families is hard. Dad stared at the floor. "We thought structure would help. Discipline." "By sending me away?" I asked. "Without telling me?" Ethan stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You don't belong here. This is my family now." "That's enough," Dad said, finally raising his voice. Ethan ignored him. "You were supposed to be gone by January. I was supposed to have this room." He spread his arms like he was presenting evidence. "Look at it. Bigger closet. Better window. Everything." "I've lived here my whole life," I said. "And now it's my turn," he snapped. Karen grabbed Dad's arm. "Mark, say something." Dad ran his hands through his hair. "We made a mistake," he said quietly. Ethan's eyes widened. "What?" "I said we made a mistake," Dad repeated louder. "This isn't happening." Ethan exploded. "You promised me." He shoved the bookshelf again, and this time it tipped over completely. Books spilled everywhere. "I uprooted my life for this," Ethan yelled. "I left my friends, my school." "You moved because your mom and I got married," Dad said. "No," Ethan screamed. I moved because you said he'd be gone. Silence fell heavy in the room. I felt sick. Every late night, every whisper, every strange comment suddenly made sense. You were planning this behind my back, I said. Karen tried to speak, but I cut her off. For months. Dad finally looked at me. I didn't know how to tell you. So you decided not to, I said. Ethan laughed again, but this time it sounded desperate. You can't back out now. It's done. Dad straightened. No, it's not. Ethan's face changed. Cold. Dangerous. If he stays, Ethan said slowly, then I go. Karen gasped. Ethan, don't say that. You choose, he said, looking straight at Dad. The room went completely still. Dad looked between us, his jaw tight. Ethan, you're not leaving. And Daniel isn't going anywhere. Ethan stared at him in disbelief. You're choosing him? I'm choosing what's right, Dad said. Karen shook her head slowly. This is exactly what we were afraid of. Afraid of what? I asked. That this would tear the family apart, she said quietly. Ethan laughed, sharp and bitter. You already tore it apart. He turned to me. You think you won? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My chest felt too tight. You think staying here means you're safe? He continued. Ethan, stop, Karen pleaded. But he was already backing toward the door. This isn't over. He slammed the door behind him hard enough to rattle the walls. No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was Karen crying softly. Dad finally broke the silence. We'll fix this, he said, but his voice had no confidence in it. How? I asked. He didn't have an answer. That night, I slept with my door locked for the first time in my life. The next morning, Ethan didn't come down for breakfast. Karen said he'd locked himself in his room. Dad went to work like nothing had happened. Karen stayed home. I went to school feeling like everyone could see what was wrong with me, even though no one said a word. When I came home, Ethan's door was still closed. Karen told me not to provoke him. Give him space, she said. It felt like everything was suddenly about managing his anger. Over the next week, nothing exploded, but nothing felt normal either. Ethan avoided me completely. When he did look at me, it was with open resentment. Dad tried to act cheerful. Karen walked on eggshells. And I understood one thing very clearly. Even though I stayed, I was no longer wanted. 2 weeks later, Dad sat me down at the kitchen table after dinner. Karen and Ethan were both upstairs. We need to talk, Dad said. My stomach dropped. I've been thinking about everything that happened, he continued, and I still believe structure would be good for you. I stared at him. You said it wasn't happening. I said it wasn't happening right then, he replied. But things have changed. Changed how? He folded his hands. Ethan is struggling. He feels displaced. He feels like he doesn't belong. So you're sending me away anyway, I said quietly. That's not what this is, Dad said quickly. This is about opportunity, discipline, leadership. Military school, I said flatly. He didn't deny it. It's only for a year, he said. Maybe 2. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You already paid the deposit. He sighed. Yes. So this conversation doesn't matter, I said. It does, he insisted. I want you to understand why. Because it makes your life easier, I said. That's not fair. What's not fair is planning to get rid of me behind my back, I replied. He rubbed his temples. I thought you'd adapt. To being replaced? That's not what's happening. I stood up. I'm not going. Dad's voice hardened. You don't get to decide that. I felt something break inside my chest. That night, I called my mom, Sarah, for the first time in months. She lived in Brookdale, 3 states away. I told her everything. Every email, every promise, every lie. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Pack a bag." "I can't," I whispered. "You can," she said firmly. "And you will." The next morning she called Dad. They fought. Loudly. By that afternoon, Dad was served with papers. Emergency custody. Karen screamed. Ethan punched a hole in the wall. Dad looked at me like I'd betrayed him. But for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. The court hearing was scheduled for the following week. Until then, I stayed in my room as much as possible. Dad barely spoke to me. Karen avoided eye contact. Ethan acted like I didn't exist, except when he slammed doors or played music too loud on purpose. When the day came, Dad drove me to the courthouse in silence. The building was cold and smelled like disinfectant. My mom, Sarah, was already there with her lawyer. She hugged me tightly the moment she saw me. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded, even though my hands were shaking. Inside the courtroom, everything felt unreal. Dad sat on the opposite side, rigid and pale. Karen sat behind him. Ethan wasn't there. The judge asked questions. About school. About home. About whether I felt safe. I told the truth. I talked about the emails. The promises. The military school. The night my room was destroyed. Dad's lawyer tried to frame it as discipline. Structure. Concern for my future. But the emails were entered into evidence. The deposit receipt, too. The judge frowned. "You planned this without informing the child," the judge said. Dad didn't respond. After a long pause, the judge spoke again. "Temporary custody will be granted to the mother." My mom squeezed my hand. Dad's face collapsed. I was allowed to leave with her that day. No goodbyes. No packing beyond what I could carry. Karen cried. Dad didn't say a word. As we walked out, I didn't look back. For the first time in months, I could breathe. Living with my mom felt unreal at first. Her apartment was smaller, quieter, and nothing like the house I'd grown up in, but it felt safe. She let me sleep for almost a full day. When I woke up, she was in the kitchen making soup. "You don't have to be strong here," she said. I cried harder than I had in years. Over the next few weeks, everything slowly settled. I enrolled in a new school. My mom handled the paperwork, the calls, the explanations. Dad called once. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail saying he just wanted to talk, that everything had gotten out of hand. My mom deleted it. The custody hearing for permanent placement happened a month later. This time, Dad showed up angry. He said my mom was manipulating me, that I was ungrateful. The judge listened, then listened to me. I explained how I'd found out about the military school, how my room had been destroyed, how I'd been treated like a problem to be solved. The judge didn't interrupt. When it was over, the decision was clear. Full custody was granted to my mom. Dad was ordered to attend counseling if he wanted visitation. Outside the courthouse, my mom hugged me again. "It's over," she said. I nodded. Ethan never contacted me again. Neither did Karen. Months passed. I adjusted. I made new friends. I stopped sleeping with my door locked. Sometimes I still thought about that night at 3 a.m. The shouting. The papers. The truth coming out all at once. But it no longer controlled me. I wasn't temporary. I wasn't disposable. I was finally home. A year later, I ran into Dad by accident. I was leaving a bookstore near my mom's apartment when I saw him standing across the street. He looked thinner, older. His shoulders were slumped in a way I'd never seen before. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he crossed the street slowly, like he wasn't sure I wouldn't turn and run. "Daniel," he said. I stopped, but I didn't step closer. "I heard you're doing well," he said. "Your mom, she mentioned your grades." I nodded. "I am." He swallowed. I messed up. I didn't respond. I thought I was doing the right thing, he continued. I thought if I controlled everything, it would work out.
It didn't, I said. He nodded again.
No. There was an awkward silence. I went to counseling, he said, like the court ordered. I looked at him then. Really looked. Did it help? He hesitated. It helped me understand how much damage I caused. I waited. I don't expect forgiveness, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I studied his face. For the first time, he didn't look like an authority figure. He just looked like a man who'd lost something important. I'm okay now, I said. That's what matters. He nodded, eyes shining. I'm glad. We stood there for another moment. Then I walked away. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free.